How Florida State's defense is utilizing its youth to build depth.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back into Locked On Seminoles. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $5, and if it wins, you can get $300 to use across the FanDuel app. And we're going to be talking about the Virginia game in many ways today on Locked On Seminoles, but in particular, how the Noles are going to have to attack a pretty decent defense. Looking at the statistics, even though Virginia is not known as a defensive team, Florida State has its task of beating them in different ways, not just running at them. They're going to have to throw the football and make big plays. We're going to talk about that a little later in the show. We're going to dissect the PFF numbers on both sides of the ball. But most importantly, with this first statement, we're going to talk about the Noles and their youth movement, freshmen and sophomores making an impact across the defense. And that's going to be a key barometer for how far this team can go. Depth is the key, especially once you get into the playoffs. So if you take nothing else from this show, note, Florida State's deeper than people think, and they've done it with not just the seniors, not just juniors and transfers, high school recruits. In the last two classes, they're really starting to show up. And here's the proof. Just looking at the defense from safety, corner, all the way down to defensive line, these are some of the PFF numbers for snap counts. Let's start with the Nasir twins. 55 snaps for Mandrell. Darrell has 54. And just as an example, Mandrell has one of the highest PFF ratings overall on defense for Florida State, 79.9. He's one of the top 5 guys on the defense in general. That is not normal for a freshman player at any spot, let alone D-line. Trenches are very hard for freshmen to contribute at all. To be at the top of the board shows that Florida State's depth has just blossomed into something that I didn't foresee. And I'm guessing that even Florida State's coaching staff didn't know for sure how good are these guys. They're coming in and playing and doing well. Now, let's talk about some of the ideal situations across the board at linebacker and especially in the secondary. Look, at linebacker, they're pretty experienced. But Cryer and some of these guys that have finally stepped up, they earned their way through. Then you got Jaden Parrish, who's played quite a bit. He's a redshirt freshman, and I think he's going to end up playing a lot more as the season goes on. He's a thumper. Loved him out of high school. He's a redshirt freshman from Palm Beach County in Florida. Love him. And then we get into the secondary. It's loaded with freshmen and sophomores. Charles Lester has 26 snaps. Kai Bates, 26 snaps. The freshman Shamar Ono, he has 27 snaps. That's just a little bit of it. And then, of course, you got a guy like Jerry Wilson that's still gobbling up a lot because he's an All-American candidate. But you're going to have guys that are ready to play right out of the gate if he gets banged up or if he needs a series off, whatever it may be. They've already played a bunch of these guys. And at some point, again, it's going to happen. It's football. This is a barbaric sport. Guys get beat up. They got to come over to the sidelines. I don't know which player or players it will be, but I'm not near as concerned about Florida State's depth in the secondary, the defensive line, especially with Jaden Parrish kind of coming along at middle linebacker. It just looks different than what I anticipate in a good way across the board. Now, just in general, to give you some numbers here, and we'll talk a little bit about class. I'll start with the safeties this time and move down. Here are the snap counts for the players at Florida State that shows their balance, regardless of class. This is from each position. I'll start with the guy with the most snap counts and then all the way down to the middle of the road. I'm not going to go through every player they have through the walk-ons, but it shows you how many different guys are playing, and it's a good sign. Safety, Earl Little, 118 snaps. Ashwin Barker, 110. Edwin Joseph, 98. KJ Kirkland, 65. All those guys have played a lot and been very successful. It was one of the positions that I was most curious about because Florida State's new defense puts a lot of emphasis on the safety position. They got 4 guys playing at a high level, or Tony wouldn't give that many reps out through 3 games. Corner, this is even more convoluted and a lot more good news. Jerry Wilson, 113 snaps. Jabril Rawls, 92. Quindarius Jones, 53. Shamar Ono, 27. Charles Lester, 26. Kai Bates, 26. Ricky Knight, 24. So you got 7 guys that have played at least 24 reps. Great sign. Now, Shamar can play safety or anything else, and I have a feeling that Bates at some point might play some safety as well, but they're going to cross-train. That's the other advantage of this. So when some of these other guys like Barker or somebody leaves after this year, Florida State, they're going to have guys that have experience, and they're going to have guys with the length and athleticism to play the deep secondary or man up on the corner and play on an island. I love that. Linebacker. This is the most experienced group, but again, watch out for Jaden Parrish coming along pretty soon. Elijah Herring, 92 snaps. Justin Cryer, 85. Blake Nicholson, 61. Omar Graham Jr., he's at 57. Stephon Thompson at 47. As this year goes on and they rotate different players, I'm a little bit interested to see if not only Jaden gets in the game, does he play some of that outside linebacker spot and really start rushing, and how they use those guys. Just something to think about. Defensive line. Darrell Jackson, 95 snaps. Not surprising that he's leading. He's a rare guy. Daniel Lyons, 79. James Williams, 61. Mandrell Desir, 55. Darrell Desir, 54. Jason Jenkins, 51. And KJ Sampson, 50. They've got a few other guys, though, but if you're already down to 7 players and you still have 50 snaps for each through 3 games, you're doing pretty good. Florida State's depth on the defensive line, like KJ Sampson is a redshirt sophomore. The Desir twins are true freshmen. I believe James Williams has another year of eligibility. I'm not sure how they're going to count that because he's a JUCO kid. But they don't have just all seniors. Daniel Lyons, another kid, he's got another year of eligibility, or 2, but he might have 2. Yeah, he's a redshirt sophomore. This is another youth movement deal. And their D-line's been pretty good. I think they're going to take another step as they get used to this defense. And to be honest, the Virginia game's a great barometer for that because they're going up against a pretty savvy guy in Chandler Morris at quarterback. He's put up some numbers, so they need to get after it, slow down the run game too, but they're going to be challenged quite a bit. When we come back, we're going to be talking about 5 questions for Florida State that really we need to start focusing on with the Virginia game, and it'll be pretty much the same 5 against Miami. The next 2 games are pretty much going to define whether or not Florida State is truly a team that can do something in the playoffs or not, because the competition is going to ramp up. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Quick question for all you Florida State fans. If you could go back in time and look at the biggest rivalry game against Miami or Florida, and you could be there, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage styles fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. I used to have a bunch of them, Florida State included. Guess what? They still go for the same price as they did back then. Yeah, you don't have to pay $30 anymore. All you have to do is use code LOCKEDON, and you can get a vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. That is thegamecaps.com, because legends wear the game. We are also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. In the NFL season, just like college football, it is back, and FanDuel has got you covered right now. Bet $5, and if it wins, you can get $300 in bonus bets. You can bet on anything from Florida State's money line to NFL with the Buffalo Bills, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, quarterbacks, AFC title game, whatever you want to use across the app. Ready to play? Download the FanDuel app, and you can also visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. And never forget to support your local community. This is one of my favorite things about being involved in this sport. You get to go to different places and check out the different college scenes. Tallahassee's a really good one in particular. And certain businesses around you in Tallahassee and other places, they deserve your attention, especially those mom and pop places that really make our community special. So when you're visiting, make sure you check them out, whether it's something like Newberry in the greater Tallahassee area, or how about the Black Dog Cafe, Aaron's Fine Custom Clothing, Florida Wing Factory, all kinds of different places, and you can support your local businesses. And best of all, you're going to have some fun while you do it. So if you want to check it out, you can go to square.com/go/Locked On College to learn more. But in the end, make sure you support your local businesses, and we will see you in the neighborhood. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Truly appreciate you stopping in to get all your latest news with the Florida State Seminoles. I'm having a lot of fun talking about the Noles winning, and I'm sure you are as well. Going to break down Virginia all week. Probably have some recruiting news here in the next day or so. hoping for. And we're also going to give some predictions on not just that game against Virginia, but I have some other thoughts about the widespread trends, if you will, in college football we'll be talking about periodically as well. But right now I got 5 questions. I'm going to ask them. Feel free to answer, but I'm going to give my own thoughts on these. But these are questions that I have about Florida State against Virginia and Miami, kind of both, but obviously Virginia's the first game. Can Florida State rush 4 players and consistently get pressure? Chandler Morris is a veteran quarterback. He's a graduate student. He's not really going to be faced with a front that he hasn't seen before. This is a really unique challenge and a good one because Carson Beck is another graduate student. He's a 6-year guy, transferred from Georgia. Can you get there with 4? Can you get home? Can you get him off platform? Chandler Morris and that Virginia offense can throw it. They threw for 380 yards in their last game. If Florida State does not, that's going to be a problem. To me, I think it'll be a little bit of a mixed bag. Virginia knows how to scheme it up, and I think they'll go quick game quite a bit. You're not going to get home with that. So you still got to rally to the ball. Defensive lineman got to get outside, make tackles. But secondarily, when he does drop back, I think some of the younger guys, especially the Desir twins, Jason Jenkins is getting his sea legs. You're going to have more depth, as we just talked about a moment ago. Look for the second half to be an advantage for the Noles. Some stunts, some different blitzes. They're saving stuff. They're not going to tell you that in press conferences, but they're going to save stuff. They'll show a little bit against Virginia. They're going to catch them a few times, get a couple extra sacks out of that. Then against Miami, we'll see the full gamut. Number 2, Jerry Wilson's got a couple of picks, and he's just a special player when it comes to breaking on the ball. The way he reads things, tremendous. Need to see every other player in the secondary start to get more breakups. Will that happen? Against Chandler Morris, Carson Beck, that's going to be hard, but you also have to remember there's a chance at deflections. It doesn't have to just be a straight pick, although those are preferred because you got a better chance at a pick 6. Deflections. How many do the Noles get against Virginia? Morris isn't the biggest guy from what I remember. Maybe Florida State can get a tip, maybe a pick 6 off of it in Charlottesville on Friday. Number 3, which defensive players become elite? We know Darrell is playing at a very high level. Jerry Wilson's playing at a very high level. I would say there's a handful of others. You could all argue, but which one? Is it Omar Graham that's going to step up? Is it James Williams who's had his moments? Obviously, if you look at the defensive numbers I was just talking about a second ago, I mean, Herring's played pretty good, but I would say Earl Little's probably the other one most likely to be deserving of elite, maybe Ashwin Barker. But to do that, there's a big part of that goes into what I just talked about, interceptions and just turnovers. Florida State needs 1 or 2 more guys to make game-changing plays, especially now that the competition's not just better, it's a lot better. No offense to East Texas A&M or Kent State, but they're terrible. Virginia can score. You need game-changing plays to take the crowd out of the game. If Florida State can do that against Virginia, especially in the first quarter and a half, they can go into halftime, regroup with a lead, and it's a totally different deal. If you let Virginia hang around and you don't get any turnovers in that first half, and they regroup coming out with, again, a graduate quarterback at home, anything's possible. Got to have more game-changing plays. So which guys step up in addition to the guys that already are? Darrell, Jerry, some of the other players that have looked really good. I'm not sure who it's going to be, but I'm hoping for multiple against Virginia. Number 4, this is a fun one. Talked about this a ton, and I don't know what they're going to do. So I'm not really sure of the answer, but who's the number 2 receiver while Squirrel is out? And to that end, is Squirrel going to play this week? I don't know. As I've always said, coaches do 3 things at press conferences. They lie, and lie, especially about depth charts and injuries. Does Squirrel White play against Virginia? It would help because he is basically the number 2. But until then, they need somebody to step up. And while the wide receivers, I'll talk about their numbers here in just a second, are not as balanced as the defensive side, there's still a lot of talent. Here, Deuce Robinson's got 132 snaps. Javen Boggs, 78. Danzy has 64. Squirrel White, 44. Remember, he got banged up in game 2 pretty early. Tayshaun Gelsey at 39. That's your top 5. So your number 1 player almost has twice as many snaps as number 2 and number 3. We need somebody to step up and start being a guy. And maybe Wayne McCoy makes more plays. Maybe Jalen Lucas is involved with that more. I don't know. But who's going to be the number 2 until Squirrel White is completely healthy? That's a big question. And then number 5, really need to see this one against Virginia, because against Miami, it's really going to ramp up. This could be the key to the season if Florida State's going to take that next step and be an elite program again. Will the offensive line, especially with that inside zone play, which is everything for Gus Malzahn's offense, it is the base to the reverses, to the bombs, to the RPOs, everything that he does. Will they just flat out get more push with the linemen? That is a checkbox. They're doing better at it, but they're not to the level they need to really make it into the college football playoff, in my opinion, and make a deep run. They're on the verge, but we need to see it, and against better comp. I don't know. Like the first play from scrimmage against Kent State, they smacked them. Need to see that kind of effort and that cohesion. If Florida State's inside zone play and split zone, if it's doing really well, there's really nobody that's going to consistently slow down the offense. Too many playmakers, especially with Mekhi Danzy being the freakazoid that he is, in addition to Deuce Robinson. They use him differently because he's kind of new to receiver. He's still learning routes, but he's still a playmaker even when they just toss him the football on a reverse. I think Florida State needs to be even better at interior line and just overall the interior zone play that they play, like they use like constantly. If you run inside zone and dominate, the other team has no chance with all the reverses and screens that FSU has, let alone Tommy's legs. So we'll see how that goes. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about Virginia's defense. I was surprised because not just a good offense. I've talked about Chandler Morrison. They throw it around. Their defensive numbers might surprise you. And let's talk a little bit about what are the expectations after Florida State obliterated their last 2 opponents. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. All right, let's discuss Virginia for a second. This is a good football team. It's not one that I think is dominant, but they had the ability, in my opinion, to not only make plays, but more importantly, to go out there and hit a few maybe early plays. They're going to save some stuff for this game. They might hit a bomb early or something. Who knows? They've got good players too. But when they're on defense, can they take the ball away from Florida State? Can they slow them down? I don't know enough about their personnel, and I'm not going to go watch 20 hours of film against bad competition. They haven't played the best, and I'm being extremely kind. Virginia's opponents so far and their scores, they played Coastal Carolina, who's terrible, 48-7. They lost at NC State. They were competitive. They lost 31-35. William and Mary, they won 55-16, terrible. And then Stanford is one of the worst teams in the FBS, like in Power 4. They're really bad. So they beat them 48-20. The thing that I think that is going to be interesting, and I'll give you their stats in a second, first down runs, it kind of comes off what I just talked about in the last segment. Inside zone is Florida State's play. That's no secret. Can they keep Florida State to 2 or 3 yards per carry, maybe have a couple of TFLs early in the game? If that happens, they might have a chance in this game. I'd give their chance of upsetting Florida State between 5 and 10% because I don't think they have the depth and overall talent they need on defense, but they have played pretty good. Here are their numbers. And again, 3 of the 4 teams they played are pretty awful. Rush defense, 100.3 yards per game. That's 31st in the country. Passing defense, 213.3 yards per game, 74th. Not a good sign for them because, again, 3 really bad teams. Total D, 313.5. That's 45th. And scoring 19.5. That's 48th. Okay. I think they're going to load the box and dare Florida State to throw because I don't think their pass defense is good either way. If Florida State beats them over the top, they're going to be like, okay, fine. We don't have the guys to dominate you. Or they're just going to say, we're going to give you 5 to 7 yards to try to make you kick field goals, go down the field. I don't think that'll be their approach. Tony Elliott's a decent coach and everything, but he wants to be aggressive. I think he wants the ball back. I don't think he wants to see his defense on the field all day because he knows in the second half, those 4-yard runs become 7.5, 8 yards per carry, and you're toast. So I think they're going to load the box and try to take it away. So here's my extra question. Will Florida State show anything or do anything formationally, whatever, that may be pretty much the same play or plays, but that catches Virginia off? My guess is strongly yes. The one thing about Gus that I knew when I covered him when he was at UCF, being around the program, going to press conferences, they always had a wrinkle for every opponent, whether it was a conference game for USF or UCF, or whether it was an out of conference. He didn't care. He had a little something for every team that was a quality opponent. Against teams they knew they were going to beat, it was a little more generic. Virginia, road game, conference game, wanting to set the stage. Friday night, Florida State at Virginia is the biggest game on TV. I don't think there's any doubt he's going to have something. Now, I don't know what it's going to be. It could be a trick play. It might just be something formationally that makes it easier for them to run guard tackle trap. Again, I don't know. But the one thing I will bet you on is they're going to use, because he scored down 3 reverses for touchdowns for Danzig, I believe. They're going to use Danzig in a myriad of ways to make the defense look at him, to hesitate, and to think. This is the one thing that Malzahn's offense is really trying to do, is to make you register, okay, I have this responsibility, but this guy scares me. Every time defensive players think, they're in trouble. So again, will they come up with any new wrinkles, especially with Danzig? Maybe it's him in motion. Maybe it's him in the Wildcat just as a fake. There could be a million things. With Gus Malzahn, there's always something new that he's trying to figure out to make it fun, and he does a great job with it. He's probably my most fun guy to really look at from an offensive standpoint in college football right now because of what he does formationally. Not necessarily the play calls, but he puts you in a lot of really difficult spots because you know the quarterback's always going to be mobile for him. How do you handle it? And are you aggressive? I don't think Virginia's going to blitz a ton. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they're going to come after him. They're just going to put an extra guy in the box and try to rally. They don't have the athletes to go man for man, play single high all day and blitz an extra guy. Bad idea. I don't think that'll work out for them, and I'm sure they know that. But put another guy in the box, I think they'll do. They'll play a little cover 2 behind it, maybe man under, something like that, and then they'll zone up and try to tackle on 3rd and long, play sticks. That's pretty basic. But those formations on first down, if you do well with them, especially coming up with different ideas, you get yourself in 2nd and 3, then it doesn't matter. Then even on 3rd down, if they run the right defense against you, Tommy might go get you 5 yards. Draw play to Jalen. Toss sweep. And it's, it could be any number of guys. It could be Cam Davis. It could be Sam Sager. They got so many running backs, Florida State. It's ridiculous. They'll figure it out. Watch the first down runs, how Virginia plays it. That's the key to the game. And I probably would say the first quarter, if Virginia is not leading after 1 and the defense isn't definitively slowing down the rushing attack for the Noles, they're in a lot of trouble. Maybe I'm wrong on how they do it. I think they're going to bring 1 in the box and really try to make Florida State throw. And that may not work either. Florida State might score on a couple of passes, maybe even a slip screen or something to Jalen. Who knows? If that happens, then they're screwed anyway. So I like Florida State big in this game, but it'll be later in the game. I think Virginia will hang around. And I'll get into that later this week on my final score prediction. But look for them to come down in the box and really challenge Florida State. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Please like and subscribe. And if you're on Apple, please hit that automatic download so you get our stuff each and every day. We'll see you again tomorrow.